Afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to start with another vintage Valentine, and we're going to do a spin on it. As you can see, I've kind of sketched it out. If you're a Patreon member, there's a traceable, and we are going to be kind of converting this into a Cinderella vibe. So we're going to start with putting in our background, just like we usually do. We're going to work our way in. And because I'm kind of doing this blue and red bit here, and there's going to be like this red heart, I'm thinking we're going to do a pink and white background, sort of like her pink and white dress. So first I'm going to go ahead and stick some light magenta on my palette. And I'm also going to stick some white on my palette. There we go. I'm going to start with my 5/8 angle brush, just because I'm working on a 9x11 canvas here. For the last several, I've done 8x10s, but I'm running low on 8x10, and I really like Cindy, so Cindy's getting a bigger piece of the puzzle. And I'm just kind of going to cross hatch in the pink for now, and I'm slowly going to just kind of add it in. We're going to do some fun stuff with this. I think I've got plans to use a dauber sponge to make some fun little textures. But for first, we need to get the paint in. And I'm not getting super close just yet. For now, I'm just kind of putting in my color. We'll go back in with a detail brush to get in closer. And as always, don't neglect your sides unless you frame your art. I do not. And I'm going to kind of skim around the heart a little bit. I'm letting the angle brush do its work. Let it do the hard lifting for me. And then I'm going to kind of touch back up my crosshair because I don't really want that roundness showing there. It's not the kind of texture I'm going for. Does anyone have a favorite Valentine's Day memory? Something that like really stuck with you. I have one from when I was in first grade. And I was already like obsessed with boys in the first grade. Actually, I think I was probably obsessed with boys when I was 4. I may have even come out of the womb that way. I honestly couldn't tell you. But there was a little neighborhood kid that was in all of my classes from kindergarten all the way up through to 3rd grade. And it was my very first Valentine's Day gift. It was the sweetest thing. And his poor parents and grandparents were like, yeah, one day we'll live, more than 3 streets close together. Obviously, that did not happen, and it was horrible. But parents put a lot of stock sometimes, I think, into like the early puppy love relationships of their kids. It's kind of cute to imagine it, but, cool parents to kids. All right, and to make it easier to get to the other side for me, I'm going to flip my canvas. Still just kind of cross-hatching in my pink paint. I really want a lot of texture. And don't forget your bottom and your other side. One of the things I dislike about Valentine's Day is this like immense pressure to be like have the perfect gift, or the perfect evening. The entire like whole bowl of wax attached to it is just unduly unfair. Like, and it seems like it's meant to be like a holiday that is targeted like for girls, but you should really be teaching your male spouses with just as much affection, if not more, because let's be real, sometimes we hard ladies. It's true. Admit it. Admit it like a woman. Sometimes we hard. It just is what it is. But I feel like they kind of get shorted on this holiday, even in like the commercial industry. It's just not, it's not okay. And they have to keep like topping themselves every year, like competing with like this hallmark idea of what a holiday is supposed to be. And it's garbage. It's not okay. It sets unrealistic expectations for both genders. Like, it's impossible. You can't win. You may be asking, if you feel like this, why are you painting Valentines? And the answer is because I love love. I just love love 365 days a year instead of one day a year. But this is the theme that everybody else was really excited about for this month. So I'm giving it to you as promised. But I'm doing so with the caveat that be nice to your peeps year round, regardless of gender. Holidays should not be gender specific, with the exception of obviously Mother's Day and Father's Day. And even then, if you're like me, you'd tell your mother Happy Father's Day, because that's more appropriate. But you do you. And even with my detail brush, you see I'm kind of cross-hatching to let there still be detail going on. I don't want it like noticeable that I'm just going around the heart here. I'm pretty sure if I pulled up a statistic of what people spend on Valentine's Day, it'd be some ridiculously absurd number. And then, the whole thing where like women are supposed to be like perpetually trying to have a beach body for, spring break and summer and whatever. It's really hard to do if you keep getting gifted chocolate, or if chocolate is literally around every single countertop because of the holiday. Like, seriously, you can't win. You can't have it all. You can either spoil us with candy, or we can look fat in a bathing suit. Well, and we can look fat in a bathing suit. But honestly, we won't talk about that word. That's not an okay word. That's not an okay word. No one is fat. In fact, I'm banning the word. All right, and we're almost done putting in our pink. And then we'll start kind of doing some interesting things with the white for our background. I haven't totally worked out in my head how I wanted to do it, but we'll see what plays out. And I'm going to turn it one last time so I can get kind of under the heart a little easier. And under his shoe over here. Generally speaking, I don't like any of the greeting card holidays. Mostly because I don't like greeting cards. Like, why do they want you to spend $4.50 to $7 to say something that you could just handwrite in a letter? You know what I'd appreciate more, generally speaking? A letter. The illustrations can sometimes be really cute and whatnot, and I get that. But overall, there's postage involved. Then I have to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Am I going to store it? Am I going to have to try and find a way to upcycle this? Can I turn it into a postcard? It leaves me with a lot of unanswered questions with what to do with this paper, with this cardstock. And as someone who tries pretty hard to, not have those kind of things involved in their life, it leaves me very confused about what to do with them when I receive them. Like, I finally just threw away Hanukkah cards from 7 years ago from my filing cabinet. 7 years of greeting cards. Because I put them in a folder and didn't know what to do with them. Alright, so we've got the bases of our pumpkin. So now I'm going to take a little sponge and dip just the barest little white on it. And I'm going to tap it off on the inside of my palette so it's got a nice little thin layer. And I'm going to swirl. And I'm going to do this kind of all over. And I might mix a couple of them, like let them go a little deeper, let them go a little lighter. We're just kind of softening and adding some interest to our background. Kind of like Minnie Mouse polka dots. Let it be like a secondary homage. And I'm just putting the very littlest bit of white paint and just pressing it down and turning it. And when it's dry, I might add a couple of layers of like lighter ones on top, just to add a little more dimension to the background. And I think I'm just going to do a couple of more, and then I'll come back and do some more with that later. Okay, so for the moment, I'm counting myself done. I'm going to rinse off my sponge. So that way when I go to use it later, it'll be dry. All right, with that part kind of done, we'll go ahead and we'll start working our way out, and we're going to fill in the heart itself. Actually, no, I haven't decided what color that's going to be yet. We'll probably do that last. We'll do the other instead. Change my mind. My prerogative to do that. So instead, I'm going to start with Cindy. I'm going to go ahead and put her yellow, we'll put her skin in first. And I'm going to use a Naples yellow hue. mixed with a little bit of white to get the skin tone. And I'll go ahead and put his into at the same time, just because I'll be using the same color for both. This is a pretty thin color because it's yellow, and as I've said before, yellow is kind of a see-through color, so I can still kind of see my lines for where I want my kind of eyes and mouth to go. So I'm not super worried about them getting lost. Not that we couldn't figure it out and add it back in, but it definitely helps. And then her neck is exposed. And a little bit of her chest. And because this part is sort of flowers and I don't know exactly how I want to place them, I'm just going to paint over that area for now. And I'll go back and put in what I want to do there. And then there's a little bit of her arm showing here. Just a little. Remember, she's got those high society gloves on that go up past the elbow. Couldn't do that now. Your selfies would be ruined because you wouldn't be able to hit your fingers. Right, and because I did this short version of her dress, she'll have legs exposed. So let's go ahead and paint in her legs. And again, the line is going to stay so we know where like the difference in her leg is, because we're going to add some value back to that area later. To allow us to kind of see where there's two legs coming together. All right, we don't really see any elbow on that side, but we'll stick a little bit of this here just in case the flower, when I paint over it, isn't hyper visible. And he's wearing white gloves, so you don't actually see his hands at all, but we do see his neck and face. So we'll go ahead and put those in real quick. Okay, with that part done, I'm gonna rinse my brush off. And I'm gonna start thinking about her hair a little bit. I'm gonna work from the top down. And I'm gonna put a little bit of yellow ochre on my palette. And a little bit of brilliant yellow. Not a lot, just a little. Literally like a dot. So I'm going to put my yellow ochre down first. And I want to be careful not to cover her headband. And I'm going to put just that tiny bit of that bright yellow in. Just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. I'm not super worried about overpainting my background because, well, I'm going to paint all that back there. Probably red, I imagine. Or if not, it'll be white and I have to touch up all the lines anyway. Right, now I'm going to stick the yellow ochre in. Again, being careful not to mess up my headband line. When I was thinking about which Disney princess to use for this, I consulted kind of the timeline for the hair. And I chose her almost exclusively because of this style of hair. Because she's got that kind of almost bumper bang kind of going on. And I just mixed a little bit of my yellow in there, my bright yellow. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take a little bit of my darker yellow ochre and kind of just flex some lines in there just to kind of suggest that there's a texture of it being rolled. And I'm going to use a little bit of white in the center of the roll, kind of, because that's where the light would hit it and why it would show the lightest. And we'll add a little more kind of what's going on there as we go. And I'm going to do a little bit of that there in the back too, because that kind of rolls over on top of her head. Right, and now I'm going to get out a little bit of light blue. And her headband's kind of on the bluer side, so I'm going to put it up there just as it is out of the tube. And it looks like her earrings are sort of like a lighter thing of the same shade, so I'm going to wait to do that part. Right, and I'm going to take a little bit of my light blue and put it in a just different spot real quick and add a tiny bit of white to it, just to lighten it up a little bit. For right here. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of my yellow ochre to line her face. A little bit. And then kind of clean up my line. Now in our reference image, she's kind of closing her eyes. So we're going to paint her with her eyes closed, but we're going to come back to that part. We're going to keep going for now. Now you're going to want a little bit of black on your palette. You won't need a whole lot of this, because you'll really only need it for a couple of things. So we're going to go ahead and put her little choker in. And maybe we'll go ahead and do her eyes. The kind of shape is, they kind of outlined it. So I'm going to take some of the yellow ochre and I'm going to kind of make an upside down U for her eye, because her eye is shut, but you're still going to see like the crevice of where it was. And then where those two connect, I'm going to use my smallest brush. I'm going to use a 10/0. And I'm going to kind of, oh, this one kind of got away from me. Well, now she looks like a football player. I'm going to have to clean that up. This one was a little too thick. So I'm going to let that part dry. Actually, that might work in our favor. Hold on. All right, so I'm going to take a fan brush. Small fan brush. I just got to find it. There we go. And we're going to make her lashes real quick. Actually, I don't think I've got enough control with this brush. I'm going to go back to my 10 over 0. And literally like just the barest little bit. And I'm going to kind of draw a little bit of like a lash mark. And we'll go ahead and we'll put in her eyebrow too in the yellow ochre. And I'm going to give her some pink lips, I think. And I'm not going to do her mouth open. I'm going to do kind of a tiny closed mouth. And I think I'm going to mix a little bit of pink in water and kind of create a little bit of a blush there. Kind of like vintage blush. Clean it up a little bit. Got a little out of control. There. Love it. Okay, moving on. All right, so her sleeves are that same kind of super light shade of blue. And the bodice is a little darker, so I'm going to go ahead and do my straight blue first where I can. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the bodice color. And for most of the rest of this, I'm probably going to stay with my 10 over 0 brush. And like I said, because I don't know exactly how I'm going to do my flowers, I'm going to paint more of the area where that kind of goes over, just so that way when I go back to it later, I know precisely that I don't have to worry about part of it maybe not showing right. It'll be accounted for if I go a little astray in my design. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to the side here. Because we do need to kind of tell the story a little bit of there being like a line that goes down the center. Now. And we'll do kind of the same thing with the bottom part of the skirt. We'll go ahead and put in like the dark color and follow it around. And this, because it'd be the underside of the ruffle, I'm going to leave it all that dark. And I'll put a little bit of it there. And we'll add the white directly on the canvas and mix it with what's there. Here we're kind of thinking about the way that fabric folds when it's very voluminous. Like I would expect this to be something like a double circle skirt, very voluminous. And still just kind of following around the skirt, plotting where the darker lines need to be. All right, now that we kind of got that in, we're going to add some white in and start kind of mixing the shade. And if you ever get it too light, you can always add some of your darker blue back. You don't want to think too hard about this because you do have to do this while the paint is still wet enough to mix. I'm kind of surprised no one has suggested Disney princesses for the Patreon poll for next month. Like, honestly, a little bit shocked. This might be the hardest part of this painting. So if you're doing this, you're already winning. You're a champ. We're just blending in the white with what's already there, creating the idea of where the light is hitting the middle of the folds of all of these pleats in her dress. I'm going to add a little bit of dark back in a couple of places. Okay, and now I'm going to kind of mix the lighter shades to be used for the sleeves, puffs, and her gloves. So it's going to be that shade where I'm mixing the blue I just used with a little bit of white. We do need to be noticeably lighter. And then you'll have a little peek of it over here. And just for consistency, I'm going to put a little bit and let it extend down, just in case my flower doesn't cover it fully later. Okay, and now I'm going to stick in my gloves. And again, because I don't know precisely where I'm going to stick my flower, I'm letting the hand kind of come up over a little bit, just in case. And on this side, and I'm going to use a bit of that darker blue to kind of show where the bend in the arm is a little bit. And the same over here. Just so that it's easy to tell that the arm is bent. Right, and now we're going to add that light blue down to our little powder puff here. And we might add a little more white to it once we get this base in. This would be a perfect Valentine for a little girl in your life. And I'm going to put a little bit of white, extra white in here because I really want this to be nice and light. All right, so we kind of got the basics there. I'm going to stick our shoes in now. And again, I'm going to use that light blue. I might add this one be a little bit darker, just a touch, just because it's a little further back. And I'm going to use white to make cute little bows on the top. Nothing too insane, just kind of the suggestion that it's there. Ooh, I think my camera needs to refocus. There we go. Sorry about that. My hair must have gotten in the way. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow ochre and I'm going to kind of put it where the break in the leg is. And I'm going to outline the leg on both sides. And the same for her arm. I'm going to outline it. And along her neckline. And we'll come back and do more with her in a minute. We're going to let her sit because I don't want to paint on her flower until after her dress is dried. So we're going to go ahead and work on Prince Charming over here. And this is where we're going to use the black. We're going to put black in his hair. We'll add more dimension to this. It won't just be flat black because his hair isn't really black, but it's dark brown. So we're putting kind of this idea of this darker shade in there to start with, and then we'll build up some lighter shade because hair is not all one color. And I'm going to use a little bit of burnt umber, and I'm going to use so little of it that I'm just going to take it right out of the cap. I'm just kind of adding a little bit in. We're just letting it be some dimension. That's all. All right, and we'll start working our way down. The next is gold. His neckline piece, I think, is sort of a gold color. We're going to wind up using a fair bit of little gold for him, if I remember right. And we'll use a little bit of this and antique gold together to create some value, so it's not all one shade. So we'll add in our collar here. And then he's got his epaulette. And you can paint over top of your lines. It's not a big deal. We're just kind of filling it in for now. We'll go back in and you know, add more detail there. Okay, and then we also have his gold shoulder cord. We also have a gold waist belt. And we actually also have a straight line that kind of goes down the side. We'll go ahead and outline his face with the yellow ochre. And don't forget to kind of put the detail in for his ear, because his ear is there and it exists and he can hear things. And we'll do a little bit of a brow. There. And the eye is sort of a mirror of the same shape for the openness of it. And then it just kind of a round space there. And we'll thin that out later. That is too thick, but it's a little hard to get that detail on the first go. Right, and his coat is sort of a cream color. So we're gonna use more of our Naples yellow, but we are not going to whiten it. So you're gonna it's basically like his skin tone a little bit, but darker. Because I guess the Charmings do not have bleach. Realistically, it's probably done this way so that way it looks good up against the gold. You can paint over your lines. It won't hurt you. This is pretty see-through, so you'll still be able to see where to add your definition lines. And again, we can't really, I didn't paint in the whole thing for the present in his hand because that was just more work than I wanted to do. But there is a present in his hand there that we're going to add in. His coat kind of splits open here. So make sure you don't paint that section in. And take care not to paint in his hand because he wears white gloves. So we'll be kind of painting over our lines white so that way there's a nice solid like crispness there. And I'm going to go ahead and do that bit with the glove now. Go ahead and paint in my line white so that way I can get rid of my watercolor pencil line at least a little bit. We'll have to add some more I have to do another layer for that to totally disappear, but just so we remember to do it. Go ahead and put it there. And I'm going to use the gold to do my outline work just because I imagine like this has a lot of like royal detail being that he's a prince. So I am choosing to make that decision about his coat, that it's outlined and trimmed in gold. I'm going to make sure I go over all of my lines. For his coat. And I'm going to throw in another little layer over here of this gold on the epaulette. I really want that super shiny. Same with his collar. And his pants are sort of a really deep red. So I'm going to use quinacridone Scarlet for his pants. And I'm going to wind up doing a layer or two of the quinacridone Scarlet to get it the level of depth I'm wanting. And we're just kind of slowly filling in that space, making sure that we're doing straight up and down strokes. And I'm going to turn it upside down so that we can get to the other side a little more easy.
Okay. So we've got our kind of our base layer of our pants in. Like I said, we're going to do another layer because it needs to be richer. It needs to be darker, at least in my opinion. All right, his shoes are black, so I'm going to use the black on his shoes. And to kind of like aid in the idea of like these shoes being really super like clean and shiny, I'm gonna add a couple streaks of like white because I think these would have a lot of shine. Like he's stepping out fancy. He's got to have his shoes shined. And the same with this one, we're going to add just a little bit of like polish. And I'm going to go ahead and add another layer of this red down. And I think I'm ready to start thinking about the flower. I'm thinking for her flower that I'm going to bring back in the pink. I think I'm going to bring back in the pink. So I'm going to turn it upside down so that way I don't have to worry about sticking my hand down into that paint I just put in. And I'm going to kind of create a bunch of like little circles of sorts, little half circles. I'm forming the outline and shape of my flower. And now I'm going to add some white in. I'm going to kind of blend it. And throw a little bit of the pink back in. And a little more of the white. We're just kind of creating the tiny bit of illusion of the idea that there's petals on this flower without going into a great amount of detail. And it would be darker towards the center. And this has a ribbon on it, and I'm thinking that it would probably be should probably be a white ribbon. So I'm gonna paint where my line was for the ribbon. And it should have another little loop on it over here for where the ribbon is. And we'll worry about that part when we paint in our heart, because I still don't know what color I really want for that. And I think it should kind of have, let me turn it right side up, maybe some tails. And it's going to have a few green leaves. So we'll get out some green. I'm going with something soft. I'm going to use aqua green, and I'm going to use so little of it that I'm going to just take it out of the cap. We're just kind of adding some green to her corsage. Nothing too insane. That's pretty good. And we really have to start thinking about what color we want this heart to be. I'm kind of thinking I almost like it like a light color, so maybe we can make it like a super light pink and maybe leave this one white. I'm not sure. We're still puzzling it out. So I'm going to take my 5/8 brush that I used to put in my background, and I'm going to scoop some of that pink paint I used. And I'm going to scoop some white, and I'm going to make a lighter shade and kind of mix it on my palette here. And I'm going to go for like a really light blush. So that way it still kind of stands out against the really bright pink. Yeah, I like it. That's what we're going to do. I don't know about the other one yet. We'll see when we get there. But I'm liking it so far. I'm feeling it. I'm going to turn it this way so that we can get better access. And I'm going to get right up on top of it without actually overlapping. And here we have the opportunity to like clean up some lines from where I kind of got a little out of hand when I was working on her hair, because this will cover nicely over that. This is definitely the perfect time to clean up any lines. I'm going to flip it over. And don't forget like the crevice in her arm here. And the one over here. And we're going to do this little spot over here. Continue making the way around the canvas. I wonder what Valentine's looked like the year that Cinderella first came out. Like I wonder if like kids gave Valentines like it is today where you buy a box of 32 and it has 6 or 7 different designs in it. And you give the ones you really like to your closest friends and the ones that you don't really care about so much to the ones you're not close with. Because you're generally required if you give one, you have to give to all. Or at least it was when I was in school. That might be different now, but I feel like it's probably still the same as like a way to keep kids from being mean to each other, as if kids need a reason to be mean to one another. I don't understand that as a concept. Why kids are so mean to each other. I'm going to take this opportunity with my regular pink to clean up a line on her leg. There. And this little tiny bit here. And then around in this little crevice. We're just going to do over here real quick. Oh, this is so precious. Kind of makes me think of I Love Lucy, like the Desi Arnaz thing, like the Desilu Productions thing, when they did the animated thing for a little while. And I know I've got like stuff that goes inside there, so I'm not going to paint in here because I've got stuff that needs to go there. It's gonna supposed to look like tissue paper, so I don't want to have to paint over a lot of pink because that would be kind of difficult. So I'm just gonna leave that area a little open. And we don't want to forget about the idea that we've got our ribbon here on this side. Don't paint over your area. And now I've got this little tiny spot over this shoulder and neck. And the opportunity for some cleanup over here. There we go. Almost done with the pink heart, which means we're almost done with this painting. We just have a few more details to add in. When I was kind of working on this morning and I was trying to decide how I wanted to sketch this out, I have considered having him have a shoe in his hand, but it wouldn't have made sense because she has both her shoes on her feet. So if you're wondering why I didn't do that, that's the rationale behind that decision. I didn't want to paint Cinderella half barefoot. Right, and then just this one last section of the heart left. Go us. Yay, team. I'm going to turn it back this way just because it makes it a little bit easier to get to. This is incredibly sweet. I'm very pleased with how this is coming out. I'm very, very happy I decided to give this a Disney princess kick. I'm going to round that off a little bit. Because I feel like it kind of needs it. There. Okay, yeah, I'm not imagining it. This side of this heart on that side comes up higher. So I'm going to fix that on my side over here. So that way it's a little more even. Much happier with it. Okay, so there's the base so far. I'm thinking I'm going to take it just one more shade lighter for this front piece. So I'm going to put this in and then I'm going to add some more white to it. Sort of like a super blush. My colors are blush and bashful. Sorry, it just made me think of that scene from Steel Magnolias, and I just could not help it. And I'm going to correct this heart a little bit too. I like it. Very nice. Okay. And we'll go ahead and let him have one more layer of red on his pants. We'll clean up where his eye got a little thick. Actually, I'm going to paint over it because I think that might be easier. And just try it again. And sometimes that's all you can do. If it gets up to be wild and unruly, sometimes all you can really do is just try again. I'm going to go back over the outline of his coat with the gold again. And now I'm going to take a little bit of royal gold. And I'm going to add a little bit of dimension because this is slightly darker. I'll let that dry first because I'm having a hard time kind of seeing things. So I'll come back to that. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and tell the story about this box. I'm thinking that the box itself is I'm going to go back to my hot pink. It's going to be a hot pink box with a white ribbon. And kind of being careful not to cover where his hand is holding the box. Oh, I didn't finish filling in that area pink. There's an area. Oh no, I know I intentionally left that space there for the white tissue. Now I remember. And because the little ribbon there is going to be white. Actually, let's make it, yeah, let's leave it white. All right, I'm going to put, I don't know, what color should I put inside the tissue paper for the box? Maybe let's do that soft green. Bring out that aqua green again. Let's touch up where the flowers are and give that a little more definition on the color. We'll spice this up some with some white to give it some dimension, but the inside of this box here is full of green little paper was holding that corsage. So we're going to take white paint and we're gonna kind of just draw straight lines coming up out of this green we just made. And I'm going to go back and do a little more of the white on his glove. And I think we might have to do a different accent color for the ribbon. I'm thinking I'll go back and use gold because it's not really noticeable against his glove. And maybe we'll do that with the ribbon on here too. We'll give it just that tiny hint of gold. And we're going to draw a couple of like little pieces coming out of it. And I'm thinking I'm going to put "So This Is Love" in the littlest pink heart box. And I'm thinking I'm going to do this in the red of his pants. I still have some of that left. So I'm going to dry my canvas real quick. I'm going to come back up to his eye real fast. And I'm going to try that again. There. That's smaller now. We'll add a little bit of blush to his cheek too. And
just as with Cindy, that one got a little out of control, so I'm gonna clean it up a little. I'm going to give him a bit of a pupil. And for this one, it makes sense for it to be kind of over here. And we'll kind of fill that area in that way. I believe he's kind of got a brown eye, so we'll give him some brown eyes. Actually, the black should have gone to the forward, not to the back. There. And kind of got that for his kind of lips going on. And I'm going to go and use my yellow ochre to kind of add some non-shiny lines to my epaulette. And to kind of outline a little bit of his collar so that way there's some differentiation there. And I think I'm going to bring out some of my burnt sienna to do the same. Just adding some straight lines. I'm going to hit it with the hair dryer. There we go. Because he has some lashes.
Just a little bit of a small detail, not a lot. And kind of clean up that line a little bit. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with how this is so far. I do think I want to stick a few small little white lines in his little package there. And draw a few more lines kind of coming out of it, like there's tissue paper maybe coming out of it. And I'm going to add a few more little like stray white lines kind of into her bustle. And a little just into her sleeve. I'm going to take a little bit of my dark blue and I'm just going to do a couple of quick little flicks here and there. Add a little bit of drama into the dress. All dresses should have drama. That is a rule. And I'm just going to do a quick double check that I'm happy with like my coverage of my heart here. I kind of want to paint out a couple of my brush strokes. So I'm going to do a quick little sloppy second layer in a couple of areas. All right. That's good. And I think we're ready to add our words. I'm thinking I'm going to go with "So This Is Love." And because I have a tendency of kind of flubbing this up a little bit, I'm going to use a watercolor pencil to start with. And pardon me a minute, I got to lay it down flat to be able to handwrite. So this is love. I'm going to take my brush. No, I'm not sure where it went. There it is. And I'm going to use the red since I kind of already got it on there and I haven't really used it too many other places. I feel like it can go there. Actually, no, this is not a brush I've used. It's not wet. There. Ooh, no, sloppy. I don't like it. Sloppy, sloppy. Because this is still literally just put it down, I can use literally spit and rub it out. It got away from me super fast. I need to find a smaller brush. We will give you a try. You might be thin enough to do this.
No, you're a 0. You're definitely not quite thin enough. I do not understand sometimes the convention for how they name the numbers on brushes. Maybe let's try the 3. I'm going to write it back on my pencil again. You know what? It's not going to show. So I'm just going to have to wing it and just hope, pray, trust that it's going to work out. This is love. No, I can't do it all in one line. Okay, almost there. Okay, so I got the basis of the letters in there. I just have to clean it up. I'm wound up using a 3/8 to do this. And I will use pink paint to kind of clean up my lines from my lettering after I've got it in there. I'm going to rinse off my brush and I'm going to take some of my light pink paint and I'm going to fix my lines. Just cleaning up the ends of my letters. And thinning out some of mine that got a little bit chunky.
Almost there. And I'm going to mix a little more of my light pink so I can make that final correction and get it all the way up to where I need it to be. There we go. And mix a little more white. This is a really, really light pink. And I just don't want my corrections on my letters to stick out like a sore thumb. Almost there, folks. If you had better luck with your letters on the first go around, you're probably already done. You're watching me like you are horrible. And the answer is yes. I don't normally do much with lettering for this very reason. Almost there. Almost finished. And I think I'm going to stick just a little bit of like random like white in here just to kind of lighten it all the way back up again. And now we're going to add a little detail into our background. Actually, I think we're going to do something fun here. We're going to add a little bit of red in the sides. Not all the way around, but kind of like connecting. Yeah. And let's do the same thing with white on this heart too. not a continuous line, but like a suggestion of it kind of shining. And we're going to do something very similar with all of our little swirls. They're little magic swirls. Kind of like that scene when she's singing and mopping. It's got a little bit of a dream-like quality to it. And to keep my hands from going in it, I'm going to kind of turn my canvas as I go around. You could, in theory, count yourself done at this point, but I like involved backgrounds. Turn this way. We're almost there. I know, it feels like I've been saying that forever. And I very well may have. I have a horrible sense of time. And now I'm going to sign it. And I'm going to sign it in red. Oh, red doesn't even really show. All right, I guess I'm signing it in blue. All right, she's done. I hope you had a great time painting. And as always, you can get the traceable on Patreon for $2 a month, and you would get access to every traceable that I've done so far, which would give you all of the Disney villains, the Joan Wiggle dress type inspired painting, and now this on all the vintage Valentines that I've done up to this point. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you at the easel on Saturday. Bye.